The room was sealed tight against the night, thick walls swallowing sound, heavy curtains drawn over bulletproof glass. Smoke hovered beneath the chandelier, cigar haze mixing with the scent of old leather and expensive whiskey. This was not a place where surprises were welcome. This was where men came to surrender territory, swear loyalty, or disappear quietly from the city they once thought they owned. He sat at the head of the table, motionless, hands folded, dark suit immaculate. No ring, no watch, nothing that could be grabbed. His presence alone was enough. The men around him spoke carefully, choosing words the way one chose weapons. Every sentence was weighed. Every breath was permission. Maps were spread across the table, marked with lines and symbols only insiders understood. Ports, warehouses, streets that would change hands before dawn. Tonight's agreement would end a 6-month war without a single bullet fired. By morning, the east side would belong to him entirely. He listened without interrupting, eyes cold, unreadable. When one of the captains hesitated, he lifted a single finger. Silence fell instantly. "This territory is finished," he said quietly. His voice did not rise. It never had to. "By sunrise, your people move out. No retaliation, no noise. You walk away breathing and your families stay breathing. You break this agreement, and I erase your name so completely your grandchildren won't know it existed." The captain swallowed and nodded. That was power, clean, efficient, absolute. The phone vibrated against the polished wood. The sound was small, almost nothing, but it cut through the room like a blade. Every man froze. Phones were never allowed on the table. His was there for one reason only: emergencies, death, betrayal. He glanced down. Unknown number. He did not react. He did not move. After a moment, the vibration stopped. The men exhaled silently, relief rippling through the room. Business resumed. Papers slid forward. A pen was offered. Then the phone vibrated again. Longer this time. His jaw tightened, just enough to be noticed by the man closest to him, who immediately looked away. Something cold shifted behind his eyes. Unknown numbers did not call twice unless they were stupid or desperate. Both usually ended the same way. He stood. No one spoke. Chairs scraped softly as the men rose in respect, but he was already walking toward the side door. The guards opened it before he reached it. The corridor beyond was dim, soundproofed, lined with framed photographs of men long dead or long forgotten. He answered the phone expecting a threat, a warning, a ransom demand. "This is him," he said flatly. There was a pause, then a woman's voice, careful, restrained, as if she knew exactly how dangerous this call was. "Mr. Harrington," she said, "this is Boston Memorial Hospital." The word hospital did not belong in his world. It was a place for weakness, for consequences, for bodies that failed to survive the choices he made daily. "I don't take charity calls," he replied, already preparing to end it. "Please don't hang up," the woman said quickly. "This isn't about donations. I'm calling regarding your ex-wife." The hallway seemed to tilt. That name had been buried, locked away, erased from conversations the same way he erased men who betrayed him. He had not spoken it aloud in 9 months, had not allowed himself to think it without hardening into anger or distraction. "My ex-wife is not my concern," he said, but the words came out slower than usual. There was another pause, a breath. When the woman spoke again, her voice was different, softer, heavy. "She gave birth tonight, about an hour ago." The world narrowed. Sound drained from the corridor. For the first time in years, he felt something slip past his control. "That's not possible," he said automatically. He did the math without thinking. 9 months, the divorce, the silence, the lies he had assumed, the rage that had fueled him into violence and expansion and endless nights like this one. "I understand this is unexpected," the woman continued. "There were complications. She's stable now, but she's alone." Alone. The word landed harder than any insult. "And the child," the woman added carefully, "he's a boy." A boy. His grip tightened around the phone. The hallway lights reflected off the marble floor. and for a brief, terrifying moment, he saw himself there. Not the Don, not the monster whispered about in back rooms, just a man standing in a quiet corridor, realizing something irreversible had already happened without his knowledge. "Why are you calling me?" he asked. "Because she refused to," the woman said, "and because I don't think she should face this alone. Neither should your son." Son. The phone felt heavier than any weapon he had ever held. Behind him, the council room waited, deals unfinished, power mid-transfer, an empire balanced on his presence. In front of him, a hospital, a woman he once loved, a child who had entered the world without his name spoken once. He did not ask questions yet. He did not shout. He did not threaten. "Which room?" he said. And in that moment, the most feared man in the city realized the call that should not exist had already changed everything. The car moved through the city like a shadow. Streetlights slid across the windshield and vanished behind him. He did not speed. He did not slow. Control was the one thing he still had. The call replayed in his mind again and again. Hospital. Birth. Son. Each word felt unreal, like a language he had never learned. For years, his life had followed rules he understood. Power, loyalty, blood, consequence. Nothing in that world prepared him for this. He thought of her face the last night they spoke. Cold, calm, distant. She had looked at him like a stranger. He had mistaken that look for betrayal. He had buried the pain in violence and expansion. Every territory taken after the divorce had been fueled by the same lie. That power could replace what he lost. The city belonged to him. But for the first time, it felt hollow. At a red light, his hands tightened on the wheel. Not from anger. From fear. A child meant weakness. A child meant leverage. A child meant enemies would look closer. Think harder. Plan longer. And she had faced all of that alone. The thought cut deeper than any threat ever had. She had known what kind of man he was. What kind of world surrounded him. And still, she had carried his child in silence. Why? The question pressed against his chest. He did not allow himself to finish it. The hospital rose ahead, pale and quiet. A place untouched by his rule. No soldiers. No whispers. Just light and glass and consequences. He parked and sat still. The engine hummed beneath him. This was the moment he usually prepared for. The breath before violence. The calculation before an order. But this was different. There was no strategy for this. Inside the lobby, the air smelled clean. Too clean. A security guard glanced up and froze. Recognition flickered, then fear. The man nodded quickly and looked away. He moved through the halls unnoticed. Not because he was invisible, but because no one dared to stop him. In the elevator, his reflection stared back. Sharp jaw, dark eyes, a man built from decisions that ruined lives. For the first time, he wondered what that reflection would look like to a child. Would the child fear him? Or worse, learn from him? The doors opened. A nurse waited at the desk. Her hands were clasped tightly. She spoke his name carefully. This way. The hallway was quiet. Rooms passed one by one. Soft sounds inside. Crying laughter, whispers of beginnings. He stopped outside a door. Behind it was the woman he had loved. The woman he had failed. The woman who had endured 9 months of fear without him. And somewhere beyond that door was his son. A life already marked by his existence. He realized something then. This was not about betrayal. This was not about pride. This was about the cost of being the man everyone feared. His power had kept her silent. His name had trapped her between love and survival. He lifted his hand. It shook. He lowered it again. For the first time in years. The Mafia boss did not know how to enter a room. And in that hesitation, in that single moment of doubt, the empire he built began to crack. He did not open the door. He stood there as memory pushed its way in without permission. The divorce had been quiet. No shouting. No broken glass. No threats. That should have been the first warning. She had sat across from him, in a private office far from his world. Hands folded. Back straight. Eyes empty. He had expected anger. Tears. Accusations. Instead, she had spoken calmly. Said she was tired. Said she could not live inside his shadow anymore. He remembered thinking she had already moved on. That she had someone else. That the distance between them had been betrayal. That belief had fueled everything that came after. He had expanded the syndicate aggressively after she left. Territory by territory. Night by night. Violence became routine. A language he understood. A place where he never felt confused. When men begged. When they feared him. When they obeyed. He felt grounded. It was easier than feeling abandoned. Now standing outside this hospital room, he saw the truth he had refused to examine. She had been quiet because she was afraid. Not of him hurting her, but of him pulling her deeper into a world she could not escape. He thought back to the nights she waited alone. The dinners untouched. The phone calls unanswered. He had called it sacrifice. He had told himself he was protecting her. But protection that leaves someone alone is not protection. It is neglect. The realization hit slowly. Painfully. She had not hidden the pregnancy out of cruelty. She had hidden it because she knew what a child meant in his world. A child was not a blessing. A child was a target. His enemies did not need much. A rumor. A photograph. A moment of vulnerability. And he had given them many. His power was built on fear. Fear did not make room for innocence. He imagined her taking the test alone. Seeing the truth in silence. Carrying that weight while he was planning executions and alliances. The image hollowed him. For the first time, he understood why she left without explanation. Why she cut herself off so completely. She had not been running from him. She had been running for the child. His son. The word still felt unfamiliar. Heavy. Sacred. He had believed blood made him strong. But blood now meant responsibility. Behind the door, a monitor beeped softly. Life continuing without him. He realized something else then. She had not trusted him with the truth. Not because she hated him, but because she loved him. Loved him enough to believe he would never walk away from a child. Loved him enough to protect him from becoming something he could not undo. That truth cut deeper than any accusation. The man he had been would have demanded answers. Would have forced his way inside. Would have taken control. But that man was the reason she had stayed silent. So he stayed where he was. Breathing slowly. Letting the weight settle. If he wanted to be a father. If he wanted to deserve the word son. He would have to enter that room differently. Not as a boss. Not as a ruler. But as a man willing to face the damage he caused. And that was the most dangerous thing he had ever done. He finally opened the door. Not fast. Not slow. As if speed itself could change what waited inside. The room smelled like antiseptic and quiet fear. Machines breathed softly in the background. A thin curtain stirred near the window. She was smaller than he remembered. Fragile in a way that unsettled him. Dark hair spread across the pillow. Skin pale. Too pale. For a moment, he forgot who he was. Forgot the city that trembled at his name. Forgot the men who waited for his nod. All he saw was the woman he once loved. The woman who had walked away without a word. Her eyes opened. Slow. Heavy. When she saw him, there was no scream. No anger. Only surprise followed by resignation. You came. Her voice was weak but steady. As if she had already accepted this moment. As if she had known it would come eventually. The hospital called me. That was all he said. No accusation. No demand. Silence filled the space between them. Thick and heavy. You were not supposed to know yet. She turned her head slightly toward the window. The city lights reflected faintly in her eyes. Why? The word escaped him before he could stop it. She did not answer right away. Her hand moved slowly to her stomach. A protective gesture, now instinct. Because knowing would have changed everything. He stepped closer. The air felt tighter. Like the room itself was holding its breath. Changed what? Her lips trembled. Then steadied. You would have fought the world for us. And that is exactly why I stayed silent. He felt something twist inside his chest. I did not want my child growing up surrounded by fear. By guards. By blood. You do not know what I would have done. She turned to look at him fully now. Eyes sharp despite exhaustion. I know exactly what you would have done. You would have protected us. And in doing so, you would have destroyed everything else. The words landed hard. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. A baby cried somewhere down the hall. The sound cut through him like glass. Is he? She nodded. Healthy. Strong. They said he did not cry much. The word he hovered in the air. Neither of them spoke it yet. He moved closer to the bed. Lowered himself into the chair beside her. The king reduced to a man. I buried myself in power after you left. She did not look surprised. I thought it would erase you. Erase the questions. Erase the feeling that I failed. She closed her eyes briefly. And did it. No. His voice was rough. It made it worse. Another silence. Different this time. Less hostile. More dangerous. Because this silence carried truth. You should not have done this alone. Her eyes opened again. Soft. Tired. I was never really alone. I just chose the kind of fear I could live with. His hands clenched slowly. Not in rage. In regret. Outside, the city continued to exist. Deals still waited. Enemies still planned. But inside this room, everything that mattered had already shifted. And for the first time since the divorce, he understood. This was not a reunion. This was not forgiveness. This was the beginning of consequences. The door opened again. Soft footsteps entered the room. A nurse moved quietly carrying a small bundle. The air changed instantly. Even before he saw the child. He felt it. The nurse stopped beside the bed. Her movements careful, respectful. As if she understood exactly who stood in the room. And exactly who mattered more in this moment. She placed the bundle gently into her arms. For the first time, he heard the sound. A small breath. A faint, restless movement. Life. She looked down and something in her face transformed. Fear, exhaustion, pain, all softened into something fierce and unbreakable. You can see him. Her voice was barely sound. But it reached him. He stood slowly. Every instinct screaming caution. This was not a negotiation. Not a threat. Not a war. This was unfamiliar territory. He stepped closer. The blanket shifted. A tiny face appeared. Red, wrinkled, perfect. The world narrowed. His empire faded. The room vanished. That is him. The words felt unreal. Heavy. Sacred. The nurse glanced at him. Would you like to hold your son? Son. His hands froze at his sides. He had ordered men to their deaths without hesitation. But this terrified him. She watched him closely. Not with anger. Not with blame. But with something sharper. Expectation. He nodded once. She guided his arms. Showed him how to support the head. How to hold without crushing. And then the weight settled against his chest. Warm. Real. The child stilled almost immediately. as if recognizing something ancient. Blood. Connection. His breath caught. His chest tightened. A pressure he could not fight. He had never allowed himself to feel this exposed. The baby opened his eyes briefly. Dark, unfocused. Then closed them again. In that second, everything cracked. This was not leverage. Not weakness. This was consequence. A life created in the middle of violence. In the shadow of his name. He looked down. His voice came out rough. I did not know. She did not respond right away. She was watching him, studying the way his hands trembled, the way his shoulders had softened. You were not supposed to. He swallowed. I would have come. She nodded slowly. I know. That admission hurt more than accusation, because it meant she had believed in him. Once, the baby shifted. A small sound escaped his mouth. Demanding. Alive. Something inside him rearranged. He realized then. Every enemy he had ever faced. Every threat. Every war. None of it had ever frightened him like this. Because this could be taken. This could be destroyed. Not by bullets, but by his choices. He lifted his head. No one touches him. The words were quiet. Absolute. She did not challenge him. She only said, that depends on what kind of man you choose to be now. The truth settled between them. This child would change everything. Not by force, but by presence. And the Mafia boss who ruled the city finally understood. Power could build an empire, but only love could make him worthy of it. The child slept against her chest. Small breath steady. Unaware of the storm his existence had already created. He sat across from her, hands clasped, back straight, trying to remember how to exist without command. You still do not understand why I hid him. Her voice was calm, not accusing, not defensive. He looked at her, really looked. The exhaustion in her eyes, the strength holding her upright. Tell me. She inhaled slowly. I knew the moment I saw the test that I had two choices. Tell you and lose control. Or stay silent and keep him safe. Safe from me. She did not flinch. Safe from your world. The words landed heavy. Your enemies do not miss opportunities. They watch. They wait. They use what matters to hurt you. She shifted the child gently. A baby is not just a baby in your life. He is leverage. He is a message. He is a threat waiting to be exploited. He did not deny it. Because it was true. I saw what happened to men who showed weakness. I saw how wives were followed. How children needed guards. How fear lived inside your homes. Her voice tightened. I did not want that for him. I did not want his first memory to be silence broken by gunfire. He lowered his gaze. I would have protected you. She nodded. I know. And in doing so you would have turned him into a fortress instead of a child. The truth burned. You would have surrounded us with men and rules and walls. And told yourself that was love. He closed his eyes briefly. I did not want him learning that fear is normal. Silence filled the room. I left because I was disappearing. Because I was becoming smaller every day. And when I realized I was pregnant, I knew I had to choose. Choose what? She met his eyes. Who he would become. He stood slowly. The movement controlled. Measured. I spent 9 months turning this city into something that could never touch you. Her voice was quiet. And in doing so you proved exactly why I stayed silent. The words cut deep. He turned away. Not in anger. In shame. I buried myself in violence after you left. Because it was easier than admitting I had lost you. She watched him. You did not lose me. You pushed me away without noticing. That was the most painful truth of all. The baby stirred. A small sound escaped him. Instinctively, both of them leaned closer. He noticed it. The shared movement. The bond already forming. What happens now? He asked the question carefully, as if the answer could explode. Nah, she said. You decide whether you are a danger or a father. The room seemed smaller. I do not want him growing up afraid of his own name. He turned back to her. Then I changed the rules. She studied his face. This is not something you can fix with power. I know. His voice was steady. It is something I fix with restraint. A pause. I will pull back. I will disappear when necessary. I will make sure no one ever knows he exists, unless you say so. Her eyes searched him. And if your enemies find out, then I will end wars without blood and erase threats without noise. Not for dominance, but for him. She exhaled slowly. That is the first thing you have said tonight that sounds like a father. He stepped closer. I will not force you. I will not cage you. But I will stand between him and this world. She nodded once. Then we begin carefully. The baby slept on, unaware that for the first time, the most feared man in the city had chosen protection over power. Night returned slowly. Not with darkness, but with tension. The hospital grew quieter. Footsteps faded. Voices softened. Machines whispered instead of spoke. He remained in the chair, still holding the child, as if letting go might change reality. The weight against his chest felt permanent now. Not heavy. Anchoring. He studied the tiny face, trying to memorize everything. The curve of the cheek, the faint crease between the brows, the way the child slept without fear. This world had never been kind to innocence. And yet here it was, breathing in his arms. A knock came at the door. Soft. Careful. She stiffened instantly. Years of survival sharpening her senses. He felt it too. The shift. The instinct that had kept him alive. A nurse stepped inside. Eyes lowered. Professional. Security just called. There is a man downstairs asking questions. He says he has family. The air turned cold. Family. He did not move. Did not raise his voice. What kind of questions? The nurse hesitated. About the mother. About the baby. About who visited tonight. Her hand tightened around the blanket. Fear flickering across her face. I told them nothing. Good. He stood carefully. Transferred the child back into her arms. A silent promise in the motion. Do not leave this room. She searched his face. What is happening? Someone is curious. That was all he said. But she understood. Curiosity in his world led to graves. He stepped into the hallway. Closed the door behind him. His phone was already in his hand. No hesitation. Lock down the building. No movement in or out. Quiet. A pause. Then. Understood. He moved without haste. The way predators do. Slow means confident. Downstairs the lobby lights glowed. Too bright. Too exposed. A man stood near the reception desk. Average build. Neutral clothes. Trying very hard to look harmless. That was always the mistake. The man looked up. Recognition flashed. Then panic. You should leave. His voice was calm. Deadly. I just wanted to check on my cousin. No, you did not. The man swallowed. You do not have family here. Security appeared behind him. Hands firm. Unforgiving. As the man was escorted out, his phone buzzed. A message from a number he did not recognize. Congratulations. Just that. Nothing else. His jaw tightened. They knew. Not everything, but enough. He returned to the room. Face unreadable. She looked at him immediately. Someone knows. Someone suspects. Her grip tightened around the child. This is why I hid him. I know. He moved closer. Lowered his voice. And this is why I will end this before it reaches him. She searched his eyes. No blood. He nodded. No blood. That answer surprised her. Hope flickering. He knelt beside the bed, lower than he ever allowed himself to be. I will dismantle this quietly. No displays. No warnings. No mistakes. She studied him. This is different. Because this time, I have something to lose. The baby stirred. A small sound. Demanding presence. Both of them leaned in instinctively. He smiled. Just barely. He already knows when things chain. She exhaled slowly. Then promise me something. Anything. If your world ever comes for him, you will choose him. Even if it means burning everything else. He did not hesitate. I already have. The city outside remained unaware. Still pulsing. Still dangerous. But inside that room, a line had been drawn. And for the first time, the Mafia boss understood. Real power was not in being feared. It was in being irreplaceable. Morning arrived without light. Only movement. Men shifted positions quietly. Phones buzzed once, then went silent. Orders traveled without words. The city woke unaware that something had changed. He stood near the window watching guards rotate. Not more. Just smarter. Less visible. Less predictable. That was the first difference. She noticed. You're pulling them back. Yes. She held the child close. Protective. Instinctive. Your people used to fill every room. They made noise. Noise attracts attention. He turned toward her. Attention kills. She studied him carefully, as if looking for the man she once knew. The child slept peacefully, unbothered by strategy or power. He should never know this world. She said it softly, not as a request, as a truth. He nodded. Then this world must forget him. The words surprised even him. Later that morning, the council reconvened. Different room. Different tone. The underboss spoke first. Careful. There are questions. Rumors. He raised a hand. Silence fell. This syndicate will shrink. Murmurs stirred. Fear surfaced. Not in territory. Invisibility. He continued. No more unnecessary enforcement. No public displays. No personal vendettas. A pause. Anyone who cannot operate quietly will step aside. They understood what that meant. This was not weakness. This was evolution. Power refined. By noon, assets moved silently. Warehouses changed hands without conflict. Names were erased from ledgers. Men reassigned or dismissed without explanation. No blood. No chaos. That was the second difference. Back at the hospital, she watched him hold the child again. More confident now. Still careful. You are changing things fast. I waited too long to change anything. He looked down at the small face. I will not wait again. The child stirred. A tiny fist tightening around his finger. Something loosened in his chest. I spent my life believing control meant survival. She said nothing, letting him speak. But control is what pushed you away. She did not deny it. So now I choose restraint. That was the third difference. That evening, a message arrived. From a rival. Short. Testing. He read it once. Then deleted it. No response. No reaction. Silence was louder than threats. She noticed that too. You used to answer everything. Not anymore. He leaned closer, lowered his voice. The less they hear from me, the safer he is. The child slept on, unaware of how many lives were being rearranged around him. She looked at the man beside her. Not the boss. Not the legend. The father. If you fail, she said quietly, then I leave. And I take him far from you. He met her gaze. No anger. No challenge. That is fair. Because if I fail, I will deserve that loss. The city continued breathing outside, unchanged on the surface. But beneath it, an empire was being unbuilt. Carefully, deliberately, for the first time. Not to expand power, but to protect a future. The warning did not arrive with noise. It arrived with silence. No calls. No messages. No movement. That was how he knew it was real. By the second night he felt it. The city holding its breath. Eyes watching from corners that used to look away. He did not react publicly. That was the rule now. Instead he listened. Information came in fragments. A driver followed for 2 blocks, then gone. A guard replaced too smoothly. A name mentioned twice in 1 hour. Patterns formed. And patterns meant intent. He stood in the dim room beside the crib, watching the child sleep. The steady rise and fall grounding him. They know. She did not ask how. She trusted his instincts. How close? Close enough to believe. Not close enough to act. Yet, she tightened her arms around the child. This is what I was afraid of. I know. He did not move toward weapons. Did not summon soldiers. Instead he sat. Lowered himself to her level. This ends now. She searched his face. Without blood. Without blood. That promise was heavier than any oath he had ever given. By dawn the pieces were in place. A rival who thought curiosity was opportunity. A lieutenant who spoke too freely. A debt that had never been settled. He did not punish. He erased. Accounts frozen. Roots cut. Allies quietly turned away. By nightfall the rivals stood alone. Surrounded not by guns, but by absence. No backup. No support. No future. A message was delivered. Not written. Not spoken. The child does not exist. The rival understood. Fear followed. The deep kind. The kind that keeps men alive. He returned to the hospital before midnight. No visible tension. No trace of war. She looked up when he entered. It is done. She did not ask how. And no one was hurt. She exhaled slowly. Relief shaking through her. This is different. Because this time I chose restraint. Not dominance. He moved to the crib. Placed a finger near the child's hand. The tiny fingers curled around it instantly. That simple reflex nearly broke him. She watched quietly. If you had done this before. I know. He did not deny it. The past cannot be rebuilt. Only the future can. She stood beside him. This is the last test. I know. If danger comes again, then I choose him. Over everything. She nodded. Trust not complete, but no longer absent. The city outside returned to its rhythm, unaware that a war had ended without a sound. Inside the room, a child slept safely, unmarked, unclaimed by fear. And the man who once ruled through terror learned something no enemy had ever taught him. True power was not in destruction. It was in knowing when to stop. Morning light entered the room slowly. Not bright, not gentle, just enough to reveal truth. She stood by the window holding the child, watching the city breathe again. Alive, unaware, He watched her from a distance, giving space, learning restraint. There was something she had not said. He felt it all night. A weight between them that had not lifted. "You are thinking about leaving." She did not turn, but she did not deny it. "I was never planning to stay forever." The words were calm, honest. He nodded. Acceptance hurt less than uncertainty. "I know." She looked at him then. Really looked. "There is something you still do not know." The room tightened. He waited. Did not interrupt. "The night I asked for the divorce, I was not just tired. I was terrified." She paused, breathing through memory. "I tried to tell you. That night, I made dinner, wore the dress you liked, opened the bottle you were saving." He remembered. The cold food. The empty apartment. "You left before I could speak." The words cut deep, sharper now than then. "I stood there holding the test in my hand, watching you walk out. And I realized something." He swallowed. "I realized if I told you then, you would stay. Not because you chose me, but because you were trapped." Silence pressed in. "I did not want to be the reason you stayed out of guilt. I wanted to be the reason you stayed out of love." Her voice wavered. "And when you did not come back until morning, I knew the answer." He closed his eyes briefly. "I was already gone." She nodded. "So I left. Before I changed my mind. Before hope destroyed me." The child shifted. A small sound, anchoring them both. "I was wrong." She said it softly. "About what?" "About believing you could not change." He looked at her. "Careful. I am still afraid." "I know. But I see what you did. Not just for him. For us." She stepped closer. "You chose restraint. You chose silence. You chose him. That matters." He did not move, letting her come to him. "This does not fix everything." She continued. "It does not erase years of absence, or the damage done." "I know. But it opens a door." She looked down at the child. "And I will not deny him a father who is trying." His breath caught. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But possibility. He reached out slowly. Not to touch her. But the child. A silent request. She nodded. He held his son again. "Steady now." "Certain. I will not disappear." He said quietly. "Not into violence. Not into power. Not again." She rested her forehead against his shoulder. "Then we go slowly. Day by day. No promises. Only presence." The city outside continued to rise. Concrete and steel. Names etched into towers. But inside that room, a different legacy was taking shape. Not built on fear. Not enforced by blood. But earned. Moment by moment. And for the first time in his life, the Mafia boss understood. The strongest empire was the one he almost lost.